The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Constant intimidation. And that is the life that they should live. What this bill will do is say, you know what? Let's take you out of Gen Pop. Let's give you your own cell in your own wing where you don't have to worry about any of that anymore. We're going to extend your life by some years while you go through the $1 million appeals process to get through the Ninth Circuit all the way to the Supreme Court in hopes that maybe the law will be overturned. And we are going to relieve the worst people in our society of the burden that they should carry for the rest of their life. Capital punishment, yes, is a serious punishment. But in this particular case, it's having the opposite effect of what we intend to do, which is to really punish the people who are doing this. I say let them suffer, let them rot, and let's save the taxpayers a lot of money doing it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What
I cannot.
Purpose do you rise, good
I'm
gentleman?
sorry, to debate the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
Thank you. I can't vote for a bill that is unconstitutional and that we know is unconstitutional. It may have been a 5-4 decision, but the Supreme Court rarely reversed, the United States Supreme Court rarely reverses itself. You're going to have to go to the district court, and the district court judge is going to say, I'm not going to go contrary to the United States Supreme Court. Then you're going to have to go to the Idaho Supreme Court, and the Supremacy Clause says that the Idaho Supreme Court has to recognize the United States Supreme Court. Then you go to the United States Supreme Court and say, hey, we know you're very busy, but could you take a look and reverse yourself what you did?
Okay, this is live from the House floor. That is Representative John Gannon, Democrat out of Boise, debating against House Bill 515. Representative Skog, District 10, presented this bill on the House floor just moments ago, and debate has started. This bill will add a death penalty option to sentencing when judges are faced with guilty folks who committed crimes against children of a very sadistic nature, to put it mildly. This bill, I guess currently right now there might be maybe one or two other states. I heard Florida mentioned as having a bill that has the death penalty option for crimes against children of this nature. And so this debate is going on. We want to listen to some of this for a little bit. Gannon is wrapping up. We'll see who pops up to offer their words on this. So I guess as the camera resets here, I think Representative Skog will be voicing in. So let's dip in here a little bit and listen to Representative Skog.
We have a good Attorney General's office that takes on the tough bills. We also have a pretty large coffer in this legislature to pay for hiring our own attorneys when we deem appropriate, when the leadership here deems appropriate. So I'm not concerned about the cost. And as far as putting the most horrible of these perpetrators in prison forever, the victims forever live in fear of the release of their perpetrators. And many of these perpetrators are repeat criminals of this type of crime. I believe this is worth the fight. Tell the victims you don't think this is financially in their best interest. This again is a serious bill. I don't bring it cavalierly, but I ask for your green light.
Thank you, gentlemen. Debate is closed. Question is, shall House Bill 515 pass the House? Clerk will unlock the machine and members cast their votes. Has every member voted? Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Does any member
It looks like all the Democrats are voting against this bill, including one Republican, Stephanie Jo Mickelson from District 32. Representative Mickelson from District 32 joins the Democrats in voting against House Bill 515. So that's where that bill stands. That'll now head over to the Senate side to be sent through committee and debated there. And so we'll keep tabs on that bill. And we'll get going here. Welcome, folks. February 13, 2024. I am Matt Edwards. The signal is live on the air. And we've got some things lined up for you today. We hope to see Senator Ben Taves will join us. The Senate is currently in session as well, but we will hopefully get him at the top of the hour after they adjourn, if they do so. So we're excited about that. We know we want to check in with Senator Taves on a lot of the bills that are coming through. Including a bill that he voted against yesterday. He was the only Republican. He was the only Republican yesterday to vote with Democrats on in a committee hearing about the library bill. So we're going to get his take on that as well. It's always interesting how votes fall down on certain principles and everything, and that's why we do this show, to make sure that these messages get out and we get these people on to cut through the spin and cut through the nonsense that the mainstream media likes to deploy out there. Okay. Yesterday was interesting. We were going to start the top of the show here with a montage. We like to do these movie montages. We got a great team who puts these montages together. So let's roll this montage, because there is some chair shifting. There's some rules and some chair shifting going on. And we want to properly set up for it. So watch this montage.
What chair are we talking about?
My chair. I want to sit in my chair.
But that's my chair.
Destroy that chair.
What? Is that chair here?
If you want to share, you share.
That's my chair.
And I don't have to share it if I don't want to.
That chair. No one sits in that chair.
That's okay, Lois. He's just curious about the chair.
If you're going to share, let's share.
I don't have anything to share.
I don't want to share with you.
Want to share?
It's important in relationships to have shared interests.
We've shared and we've shared alike.
So nice you've learned to share.
So I get to sit in the chair, right?
You're really gonna share?
Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do.
She wants you to share it.
You can sit.
Here, take my chair. Sit in this chair.
Pugsley, sit in the chair. You can sit here if you want.
I think you want to share.
My chair, my chair.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Comfortable chair.
Sometimes in life, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Chair goes round, chair goes round.
This is a really nice chair.
I don't want a chair. I'm fine.
All right, good job, guys. Okay, so what is the deal with the chairs going on? Okay, the chairs of the committee, the chairs who co-chairs, co-chairs there. There's a lot of discussion about all the chairs that are going on in the Idaho legislature. So here's the deal: Speaker Moyle, now that he's a Speaker of the House and no longer just a member of the body, he doesn't go in front of committees very often. But yesterday he went in front of the House Ways and Means Committee with a proposed rule change. Now, when the Senate and the House, they operate under their own set of rules, and you can go onto the legislative website and look up the rules on how they conduct their affairs. And there's all sorts of rules about when you can object, when you can bring a motion, who is in charge of what, the timing of things. There's all these different rules, and they set their own rules. But when they want to change rules, they have to go through the process as if they were presenting a new bill or of that nature. There's also rules that they give to agencies, and we'll get into that in a little bit, because then the agencies take those rules and then interpret them their way so that it benefits them, and it may not be the way that the legislator wrote the rule for them. So there's all these rules that go on behind the scenes, and Representative Heather Scott talks a lot about this process, and Representative Vito Barbieri also talks a lot about this process, about all these rules. So going back to Speaker Moyle, here he is in front of the Ways and Means Committee, where he wants to change a joint rule. When the House and the Senate get together on a committee, they will operate under what are called joint rules. And Joint Rule 11, if I read it here, is who will be the chairman of the joint committee. And it says here, the chairman of the Senate committee shall be the chairman of all committees or meetings where committees of both houses sit jointly. So if the House side and the Senate side are getting together, the chairman of that joint committee will be the Senate. That's part of the rule here. As we've seen recently in JFAC, the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee, there are two chairs, the Senate chair and the House chair, Representative Horman for the House, Senator Grove from the Senate, and they co-chair JFAC. But this rule, it seems to be getting in the way behind the scenes. And so Speaker Moyle, speaking up for the House, because his interest is to make sure that the House has equal power in the legislature, he went before the House Ways and Means Committee with a proposal. So let's run that clip.
Be in our first meeting, but we do have an RS before us with Speaker Moyle, RS 31268. Speaker Moyle, if you would come and introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Moyle, District 10. Committee members, we've all been kind of the last 2 years having this back and forth issue with our Appropriations Committee and the Finance Committee from the Senate. And as we've done that and tried to figure out a path forward, we've been blessed to have two co-chairs that work well together. They seem to be able to sit down and figure out things. The concern I have is in the future. As we look at the strife, as we've done this bantering, one of the things that really concerns me is, and we talk about it often, is Joint Rule 11. Joint Rule 11 is some of the guidelines that we operate by around here, and it gives the chairman of the Senate the upper hand in all joint committees, not just JFAC. What this resolution does is tries to say They can still have control over all those joint committees, and we generally work well and don't have a problem there. But when it comes to the Finance Committee, I think it's imperative, since it is the committee that it is, that both sides share the chair. You hear me say share the chair. They work together like they're doing now. If we had a problem in the future, it'd get worse. So what I'm trying to accomplish with this RS is to say we'll leave Joint Rule 11 alone, except for one little piece which deals with the appropriation in the Finance Committee. I think that when it comes to that, those two chairmen need to work together. And I think that we need to have a path forward there that we understand that we're going to share those chairmanship. If we don't, we could get to a position where we're actually, as a House, because of the inability in the future, if it were to happen, to share the chair, would have to separate. I don't think that's wise or helpful for the state of Idaho. So I'm not sure if this is exactly how that wording should be for a proposed rule change, but I thought it would be helpful if we get this introduced. If you do introduce it, it's my intention to have a full hearing on it. I want to get more input when it gets in public, because we may want to wordsmith it. I don't know, but until we get an idea out there where everybody can look at it.
Okay, so there it is. He goes on for a little bit, and they might have a couple of questions, but I just wanted to show you that the speaker is still working behind the scenes there to try and bring some share the chair moments to to JFAC and keep things on track and make sure everybody is doing everything by the book and by the rules that they agree to set. So that's great. We like to see that. I am going to shift gears to Representative Barbieri, because he presented a rule change this morning in the House, I believe it was in House State Affairs, everybody's favorite committee, where he is addressing an issue with rules when it comes to agencies and such. So let's head over to that clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. As I said a couple of times before, I think two of the most important roles of the legislature is, of course, controlling the budget and controlling the agencies. And this is another step toward that. We kind of waited until the Supreme Court had made a decision on the case with respect to the Athletic Commission. Just to go over that real quickly, 206 last year implemented the position that both legislatures, both houses have to pass a rule before it becomes effective. Some of that terminology that we got in there wasn't even addressed with respect to the Supreme Court's decision. The question that the Athletic Commission brought was whether or not the legislature had the power under the amended Constitution, wherein we could review any rule, whether or not we had the power to review rules before they came effective. So the Supreme Court determined that we were in control of that we did have the appropriate authority to review rules prior to them becoming effective. Now the next step here in 31180 is to, as you can see in the statement of purpose, to require courts to look at the administrative rules in interpreting them, not by the way that the administrators or the agencies are looking at them, but the way that would establishing any relative doubt to limit the agency power. And as you can see there, in favor of individual liberty. So this will allow the legislature and the courts and even the administrative courts to begin to look at rules with the regular interpretation of words rather than genuflecting to the agency, what do you usually mean by this, and then rubber stamping that. So that'll give them a little more a lot more flexibility toward this end. We can certainly go into this more if we can introduce this legislation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Barbieri. Are there questions for Representative Barbieri? Representative Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a motion. I move that we introduce RS 31180.
The rule, this proposal gets entered in, and it will head out on its journey. All right, I understand. This seems like it might be a little bit of too much insider baseball of what's going on, but it really is important to understand why government does the things that they do. And I don't mean to be blowing smoke for the process, but I want you to see that there are people working within the system trying to correct things that stop stop progress in terms of getting back to individual liberty. We've become so regulated, we've become so hampered by government that it has been entrenched inside the process. And with Representative Barbieri here pointing out that they'll write a rule for an agency, and an agency will do everything in its power to interpret the rule to benefit them, and to which might possibly affect your individual liberty. And then when it gets in front of the courts, when it gets challenged, the courts are saying, well, how are you interpreting this? Well, if you're interpreting it that way, then that's okay. And it sounds to me that that what Representative Barbieri is doing here is saying, no. You will interpret the rule the way we intended it to be interpreted, by using common language and by not trying to dig in and say, well, what have you done in the past when it comes to rules like this? So this is these are very important things that happen that don't get headlines, they don't get talked about, but I want you to see that these people are doing this. And Representative Barbieri is an original pledge signer. He's been in good standing since he signed the pledge. He's my representative here in my district, and he's one of the longer serving folks there. And so he really deals with trying to make the process better for individuals, better for our individual rights. So we applaud him for doing that. We'll see how this goes. I mean, whenever the government, whenever people inside the government try to change how government functions, you get mad resistance, as we saw last week, over the past few weeks, when it comes to the budget process. So thank you for bearing with us here. I know this can be insider baseball. Maybe some of it went over your head, but I don't think so. I think you're smart. I think you can follow along. And if you have to hustle a little bit and catch up, that's great. That's what I'm doing. I'm catching up. I had to watch that clip 5 times to figure out what the heck was going on. So anyway, all right. The news over in the Senate is that they have adjourned for the day. So they got through a few bills this morning. The last bill that was up that they passed was a Senate Bill 1260, which amends existing law to provide that no election needs to be held for unopposed offices in cities with a population of under 100,000. So I guess that's trying to save money. If there's nobody opposing somebody and it's a small city, why have an election? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we missed the debate on that one, but it passed. And so it'll head over to the House and they'll debate that too. Okay. I don't have an opinion on every bill. I haven't read every bill yet. So, and again, this is not a show where I give my opinion, although I reserve the right to offer it up at any moment, but I have none for this. So, all right, we are going to take a quick break. Hopefully we will get Senator Ben Taves in a few minutes. I know they just adjourned, so he'll have to do some debriefing or whatnot, but we'll see if he can make it. And we'll be back right after this.
Surplus, which is not a surplus, it's an overcharging of the taxpayers.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto Perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty. For honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, we are back. We're going to be on standby for a couple of guests that will join us after the Senate has adjourned. I hear they're going into caucus now, so they might be in there for a short time. They might be in there for a while, but this is how it goes when you're live during the middle of the day. Okay, let's catch you up on some other things that are going on down in Boise. My rundown here says that we are yes. We have a new segment. We don't have any we don't have any music or any flashy things, but we want to know, where's the bill? Where's the bill? And there it is. Where's the bill? House Bill 447 has been sitting in the House Revenue and Taxation Committee. There is the phone number. There is the email. What is this bill? This is House Bill 447, the education tax credit for families. It's also called something else, but this is basically what it is. You're getting an education tax credit if you apply for it when you're filing your taxes. If you have education expenses up to $5,000 per child. So this bill was passed out of committee. I'm sorry, it was printed. It was printed January 30th after Senator Lori Den Hartog stood before the committee. We have that clip where she presented this bill. It was an RS, and so it hasn't even had its public hearing yet. And that's what we want. We want to have this get put in front of the committee with a public hearing and get all sides on record here. So here is Senator Lori Den Hartog presenting this bill.
What this legislation does, RS 3015, the Idaho Parental Choice Tax Credit Bill. I know many of you have heard many things. It allows a parent to be eligible for a refundable tax credit of up to $5,000 for their eligible child for eligible education expenses as defined in the legislation, or up to $7,500 if that child is special needs. These expenses could occur in a non-public setting, whether that be a private school, micro school, learning pod, tutoring center, etc. One of the things that we've heard, and one of the things I think is important to note in the legislation, budget busting bills are not the style of myself or our co-sponsors, but spending money to support education for Idaho's children is our style. So this bill is capped at $40 million for the refundable tax credit portion of the legislation. That's the maximum that could be issued by the State Tax Commission. And that's if the tax credits are fully subscribed, and that's for children of any income level. Additionally, in the legislation, there's proposed a $10 million appropriation for advanced grants, and this would be for parents who are eligible for the earned income tax credit. Same criteria for eligible child, eligible education expenses, and also administered on a first-come, first-served basis through the State Tax Commission. Just want to identify that this does not take funds from the public schools budget. We'll be dealing with those in the joint committee and on our floor separately. And this amount could only increase if a future legislature came back and would present in front of this committee. We have the cap identified in code, so it's not something the joint committee could raise. It's something that would have to go through the legislative process in the future. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's the short version. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, but happy if it's the committee's will to introduce to address many of those, if it would be the committee's will to hear it at a future date. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Den Hartog. Yes, there are a lot of questions, and the problem is that this bill is now nowhere to be found. Where is this bill? This is an issue that has come up. This is all about education choice. So last session, they tried to pass a bill that would if your child was going to private school or homeschool, that you could apply for money to offset those costs, and they would, and it was a whole system similar to what they do in Arizona with an education savings account. Well, that didn't go anywhere. So the big education folks are back to try and figure out a way that parental choice, that those who are using private schools, those who are electing to pay their own way for homeschool or private schools or whatever kind of alternative education for their families, that they are able to offset the costs, because the rest of the folks who send their children to public school are having their education costs paid for by the state. And for those who don't feel that public school is right for their families, why should they be paying tax dollars that they're not getting used. Now, the arguments can go back and forth, and that's what's going to happen, but we can't have any of these arguments if the bill is not being heard and is being stifled right now. So House Bill 447 is currently sitting in the House Revenue and Taxation Committee. This is the number to contact the committee. You'll get a nice secretary there who takes the messages. So just ask her, hey, we want to hear about this bill. We want to hear more about it. And we want to give public comment. Perhaps you have a comment, either or on either side of this. One of the interesting things about this bill is that for those who didn't get everything out of that presentation, is that there's a limit to how much money they're going to be giving out. So you could be against this bill because you don't think it goes far enough. But there's a $5,000 credit. It's a refundable tax credit. So if you owe, I think we went over this at the time when it was presented, but if, let's say at the end of the year you owe $4,000 in taxes to the state of Idaho, and you have a child in private school whose expenses reach that $5,000 limit, then you get to apply, you get to claim that credit, and not only would that $4,000 be taken away, but then you'd receive $1,000 back. So it's a refundable tax credit. That's what a refundable tax credit is. And so this bill, like I said, is sitting in that committee. And so we want to start, we want to start this "Where's the Bill" campaign for certain bills and where they are, because we're not hearing from them. We've got a couple more of these on deck yesterday, and today, depending upon how everybody's being generous, was the last day. These are the last days right now to submit new bills. So all of the bills that are going to be debated for the next half of this session, because we're about halfway through now, are in the pipeline. They are in the pipeline. And so if anybody has a brand new bill that they want to submit, it has to be a very unique, special bill that will go through a privileged committee. And generally that won't happen unless it's affecting something or they need to fix something. But for all intents and purposes, all of the bills that are going to be submitted this year that will be debated and voted upon or forgotten about have been submitted. So that's everything from the mask mandates bill to vaccination bills and medical privacy to DEI in our schools to anti-SLAPP legislation, the gun bills, Second Amendment stuff. All those things are in, and now the game begins. The negotiation begins. It is possible that this particular bill dealing with tax credits is being used as a tool to garner votes on other bills. I mean, this is what happens in the back rooms of all of the Statehouse when people negotiate over bills. You vote for mine, I'll vote for yours. Is that the way that it should go down? I don't know, but that the reality perception is reality, and that's what the reality is that's what goes down. So we'll keep tabs on that. We'll bring you some more Where the Bill segments as we come up, and we'll keep that going. Okay, let's move on here. Like I said, we have Senator Ben Taves and possibly Senator Glenita Ziderville joining us later in the show. So let's hope that they get out of their meetings and can join us. Another bill to watch. Yesterday in the Senate Education Committee, they had a very long presentation with somebody, and then they had about 6 or 7 different brand new bills, RSs. And since it was the last day of session, the last day of being able to submit these new bills, they didn't even read the bills. They just went through as a committee and said, yeah, let's print all these bills. let's give them bill numbers and put them into the pipeline so that they can have a hearing or go through the process. So we didn't get any presentations yesterday in the Senate Education Committee on a bunch of bills that went through. One of the bills was that got a number was Senate Bill 1361, Senate Bill 1361. And because we didn't get a presentation on it, we really don't know what the actual intent or what problem this was trying to solve. But as somebody who has attended public comment at my school board many times, and has watched public comment across the state and across the country for that matter, this is of interest. We played our fantastic interview with Commissioner Asia Williams yesterday, which has received some fantastic reception. That interview with Commissioner Williams of Bonner County is now on our Rumble channel, and so if you just want to watch that clip and share it around, you can go there. We'll highlight Rumble later, but when it comes to public comment at your school board meeting, what this bill apparently seeks to do is to refine the process, because depending upon what school district you're in, depending upon where you're giving public comment, there seems to be this sort of arbitrary rules that are set by the district. Now, some could argue, well, that's local control, and that's how they want to control their public meetings and public comment rules. Then so be it. But there seems to be some problems that are arising with people not being allowed to speak or having not enough time to speak. Whatever the case may be, this bill here is seeking to sort of bring a little bit of uniformity to the governing rules of what, at least in this case, school districts can do when it comes to public comment. One of the things that's interesting in here is that they are the bill also states that public commenters will not be, their comments can only be about agenda items. So when the meeting is set and the public is notified that there is a meeting, a few days before, they're supposed to post the agenda about everything that this meeting is going to cover. And according to this bill, what they want to do is to say, if you're going to speak if you're going to give public comment at the meeting, you are limited to only discussing the things that are on the agenda. That could prove to be problematic for some people, because if there's an issue that you want to address at a school board meeting in public, and get it on the record and it's not on the agenda, then this potentially could limit your ability to speak, which might seem like it could violate your First Amendment right to have proper redress against your government. So that'll be a question that we'll pay attention to and look. There was a clause in the bill that did state, if there's something that's not on the agenda and you want it on the agenda so that you can speak about it, then you can request that item be placed on the agenda. The problem with that is that there's plenty of school board trustees that are on the board that request things to be put on the agenda and never get put on the agenda. I know that firsthand. I've heard that firsthand from trustees who said, I can't get my agenda item on the agenda. So if a trustee can't get their agenda item on the agenda, then I don't know what kind of guarantee the public will have to bring agenda items forward. Anyway, this bill, again, it's going through. I'm not trying to criticize it right off the bat. I'm just saying we have some questions about the bill that we read, and the First Amendment issue and free speech and being able to redress your government is we take that very seriously here, very seriously. That is one of our fundamental rights, and as Commissioner Williams said on that interview we did the other day, that we don't have this, we don't have anything. So we need to, if we're going to stay involved, then we need to be able to have every tool available to us. So we will keep a close watch on Senate Bill 1361. Okay, what else is on the list today? Did we get our? We had another clip, another question this question has come up many times over the last few years, and I didn't realize that people still had questions about it. So if you look at a bill, on every bill, at the bottom of every piece of legislation, there is this emergency clause. And it says, declaring an emergency, this bill shall be in effect on July 1st of whatever year that we're in. And this started to happen during the COVID pandemic because there was an emergency, apparently, right? I mean, they were trying to make sure that the bills that they were passing get put into effect when they are intended to be put into effect. But there's a lot of people out there that read bills, and then you'll see it bubble up. And I've seen it over the years. Why are they declaring emergency? There's no emergency. There's no emergency. This is some sort of like nefarious, deep state type way to have control over us. And this was different than the governor declaring an emergency and then redeclaring an emergency over and over and over again for months and months and months during the pandemic. This is written specifically on the bill. So this was raised by Representative Stinson, I believe, who is sitting in for Representative Nash, a Democrat out of Boise. And anyway, so this was his first exposure to this emergency language. So we wanted to play the clip because I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that have heard this language or have seen it on bills and don't know exactly why this is on there. So let's roll this clip.
And it's the back page. Section 2, it's line 3. An emergency existing, therefore, which emergency is hereby declared to exist. This act is in full force after July 1st. Could you help define and describe what emergency we're facing?
So, Representative, I know you're new to the job. Post the pandemic, this is standard language that goes into all bills.
Okay, am I allowed to question that?
Yeah, you're allowed to question it, but that's the short answer. So if she wants to give you a more indefinite answer, go ahead, Representative.
Okay.
Go ahead, Representative Young.
Certainly. Mr. Chairman, Representative Stinson, if you watch the bills that come through this committee, you'll see that they all have the same language.
Just asking.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, good question. The one change, Representative Stinson, is all laws go into effect on July 1. A true emergency clause, it goes into effect upon its passage or signature by the governor. But we had some issues with the pandemic and an extended session where we did not go at recess. We didn't adjourn. And so it caused some problems. So we have started putting this language in every single bill. So if that ever happens again, it still goes into effect July 1st. So good question.
Thanks.
All right, there you have it. So an emergency existing, therefore, which emergency is hereby declared to exist. This act shall be in full force and effect on and after July 1 of whatever year they're in. So hopefully that clears it up for folks out there who have been questioning this for some time or have just come across it because you started reading some of these bills and noticed that this emergency language is in there. So we thank Representative Crane for addressing that issue. Okay, we are going to take a quick break, and we will come back with hopefully with some guests. And you can see we're stringing it along here. We're stringing it along. All right, but we'll be back after this.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those two founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
Okay, we're back here. Thanks for sticking with us today. Both the House and the Senate have adjourned for the day. The Senate appears to be in their caucus at the moment, and we hope to get Senator Ben Taves and possibly Senator Glenita Zeiderveld on to give us an update on what's happening on their end of the Statehouse. This morning, Representative Bruce Skog was in the House State Affairs. House State Affairs. Everybody's favorite committee, right? House State. Everything happens. If it doesn't happen in the House State Affairs Committee, if it's not happening there, it's not happening anywhere. But it's happening there. And Representative Bruce Skog presented a bill this morning that wanted to address fines for people that had marijuana on them. And so, it's interesting. Idaho is, if you look at the map, every state surrounding Idaho has legalized marijuana to some extent, whether it's full recreation, whether it's medical, whether it's cannabis products or THC or CBDs and stuff like that. Every state that touches Idaho has, to my knowledge, has done that in some extent. Idaho is still holding strong when it comes to legalization of marijuana in most forms, and so I don't see a lot of that changing anytime soon, especially when Representative Skog presents this bill today. So let's listen to this.
District 10, Star, Middleton, and Nampa, and all the land in between. Pleased to be here with this bill proposal to you with Representative Jordan Redmond. Some time ago, a magistrate judge this last summer came to me and he said, Bruce, we have a problem. There's no minimum fine for misdemeanor marijuana of less than 3 ounces. So somebody gets picked up a little bit, and we have that problem in my area, people coming from Ontario, Oregon, and a lot of judges are just giving them a traffic ticket fine or it's all over the board. They can do whatever they like on that. He said, would you please make it a minimum? I said, well, what do you want? He said, well, $500. I said, well, Judge, let me look at that. I see where you're coming from. We need to do that. But I made my own number, and I thought $420 was more generous. So that's going to be the minimum fine on this. I think it sends a message, an important message, as we build that wall around the state of Idaho. No, pot will not be legal in our state. So I hope that you would support this for print.
Thank you, Representative Skog.
Okay. Skog having a little bit of fun there with a $420 fine for having small amounts of marijuana, being caught with that in Idaho. And it's not every day you get a chuckle from the crowd in there. I think that was Secretary of State Phil McGrain who was back there. I don't think he presented today. Maybe he was just there to listen to or support perhaps Representative Lambert's canvassing bill with election. But anyway, I digress. Some humor there from Representative Skog in making sure that the fine is $420. I have no idea if this is going to go through. You're gonna get some pushback for sure. The Democrats for sure will be pushing back on this. And in fact, Representative John Gannon decided to raise the issue altogether with Representative Bruce Skog. So let's look at that exchange.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment that I think that this kind of mandatory minimum fine is inappropriate in connection with this kind of conviction. I mean, here we're talking about a user, I guess, of marijuana.
Okay, let's dip out of John Gannon here because we do have one of our guests joining us, and I want to make sure we get to it. So we'll cover that. We'll cover Gannon's comments later. If Senator Zeiderveld is here, let's bring her on. Hello, Senator. Welcome to the Signal. I know you guys just left the floor after some votes and had a quick meeting, but welcome to the program. What is going on down there from your side of the perspective?
Oh, thank you, Matt. And how are you today? Today was kind of a slow day, kind of mellow compared to what we've had in the last week. just heard a couple of gubernatorial appointments and then a couple of bills, but they're definitely getting stacked up on both sides of the rotunda. And sorry, I'm in my office and it's getting busy, and I didn't have a chance. I have previous Senator Zito. Do you want her to come and join us as well, or do you want just me?
Oh, she's there with you? Sure. Yeah. Have her sit down with you. Fantastic.
Okay. Let me, I'll try to gather her here. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
absolutely.
This is how it's been. It's just been chaos.
It has been, and we appreciate you taking the time. We know a lot of the senators we've tried to get on, but it's been very busy, and I can't imagine what you guys went through last week when it came to the votes on the budgets and all of the things that were going on there. I'd love to get your perspective on that, but it's
absolutely. Good. And we had a bill. We had the phone bill yesterday. The harmful materials. I don't even know what the name of the bill is that Senator Cook had brought in, and bringing a chair here. Sorry, everybody. This is how we do it at the Capitol.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
Anyway, here she is.
Hello,
Hi.
Senator Zito. Yes.
So we had the bill yesterday from Senator Cook, and it was quite interesting debate. It was the same one that he brought forth last year. And it's interesting how all of the Dems voted against it last year, and it's the exact same bill, and they decided they're going to vote for it this year. And, it might have, because he left our caucus to go over their caucus and make some deals with them. The Lord only knows why they changed their vote.
Did that bill without the Democrat support, would that bill have failed? I didn't see the exact number on it.
If it would have been the same as last year, basically 17 to 18, it would have failed. Yeah, it
would have failed. Right. Yeah. So so he needed some Democrat support, and that's kind of like what we're seeing right now. Is that, and we even see it at the national level, where in Congress the registered Republicans are caucusing with the Democrats to pass some horrible stuff. So we see this down here, especially with the JFAC fight and everything that was going on there. What do you anticipate going forward? I mean, what are the bills that you're championing or that you're co-sponsoring or anything? I mean, how is it faring for you and for your district?
We're struggling with getting some of our bills heard through the Senate side, and the House, I think, is going to start pressuring them to get them heard over on the Senate side, because we've been very slow going on this. I think counting today, we might have voted on 14 bills total in 5 weeks on the floor. And the committees are going slow, but the last 2 days they've been reading bills. So yesterday they had 56 bills that they are brought to the first reading in both chambers, and today is probably just as many. So we're going to start seeing a lot of that and a lot of the appropriations. I was talking with Senator Bierke, and he said that they're behind on the appropriations, and it just is kind of chaotic here, and that's kind of where we're at.
And the end of the year push.
The end of the year push.
Yeah. And Senator Zito, when you were dealing with this a couple of sessions ago, it was during an election cycle, and you weren't running at the time because you had announced your retirement. But we saw this sort of like mad dash to the end that seems to happen a lot. But there's a lot of bills on here. Do you think do you anticipate this trying to get out before the end of March? Or we're halfway through, and 14 bills on the Senate side, that's not very much.
Well, no, it's not. And I was in Senator Guthrie's office this morning trying to get a print hearing for the enhanced stand your ground bill. And he said that to date, the way he understands it, more bills have been filed this time than ever before, that it's a historical high. But this is kind of what they do, is now everybody's anxious to get out because it is an election year and everybody wants to go campaign. So you see this is a consistent pattern. So the important things are kind of left to the end. Everybody's antsy to get home. Let's hurry and get it done. Sometimes we don't get to do the due diligence on it that we want. And like the pornography bill yesterday, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, and I'm thinking the GOA will be also totally against that bill because it opens up manufacturer liability, not only for guns, but for cars or pocket knives or, any device, anything that you might use. It takes that liability back to the manufacturer and the responsibility off. There was some horse trading to get a bill like that through. And and this is what you're going to see. And on the appropriations bills, they've done a good thing to help ensure transparency, to make it so that the legislature can really look at this stuff, because that was always been a problem in Idaho, is that it's all in one appropriations bill. So if you don't think the state police should have a helicopter and you vote against their appropriations bill, well, then you hate the state police because you didn't vote for their appropriations bill. And that really doesn't have anything to do with it. So right. I know people are anxious to get out. I don't think they're going to be done probably by the 20th or 23rd of March, whatever their target date was. But that's okay, because the good legislators are here to do the people's business. And that's what comes first, and that's what's most important.
Right. Senator Zito, did you ever think that this budget reform process ever would have occurred? Did you know that this was this something that was always talked about, like that you'd be able to have these maintenance budgets and then have these, other bills that would deal with the new spending? Did you ever think you'd get to this point?
Well, I did never think it would get to this point the way it is. I know that a lot of us talked a lot about line item veto, being able to say, okay, we'll pass the budget except take this out or something like that, which I think even still line item veto would be a good thing, because in your extra ask bills, for lack of a better way to call them, I still think it will be important to be able to cut out excessive spending, things that just aren't necessary. But I'm thrilled with the way this has turned out. And I think it was brilliant on Representative Horman and Senator Groh's part, to spend the time that they spent on this, to work on this since, October or something like that, I believe. I was told, or maybe before.
Like June or July is when they started on it.
So I think it's a great thing, because now if the momentum can continue to work towards this transparency, this is great, because really when it comes right down to it, the one job that the legislature has is to appropriate the taxpayers' dollars, and to do it with a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, not to the bureaucratic agencies, not to the lobbyists, not to any of that, to the taxpayers. And that's such an important thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we're making history with that. And, and there is a lot of pushback, because now it is transparent to the people and they can see exactly what we're doing. And the appropriations that are coming forward, you're going to see some really good debate. JFACT was going through the Medicaid appropriation this morning, and it really is just out of control. And it'd be nice to go in there and peel back that onion and see exactly what we're spending on these different appropriations. I know last year, one that really stuck out to me, and there was a $9.5 million appropriation for hepatitis C treatments for inmates in Idaho. And I was just a little bit, blown away that we had that many inmates with hepatitis C. And then exactly how much is that, those treatments to cost us $9.5 million a year? Well, now we can actually debate those things and ask those questions as a whole.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, Senator Zeiderveld, Senator Zito, thank you so much for popping in and joining us and sharing this info about what's going on down there and your perspectives on all this. This is great. I want to have you back. I got Senator Taves on deck, so I'm going to cut over to him. But thank you again. How can people follow you, and where can we find you?
Okay, well, they can follow me at glenita.com. It's, the blessing of having a unique name. That's it. And I also want to encourage the people. You guys are making an impact. They are afraid of you, and that's the way it should be, because you have been calling, you have been emailing, you have been putting the pressure on your representatives. I just want to say keep it up, because that is what is really making the difference. You are making a difference, so don't ever think that you're not.
Very true.
I agree. And I'm just at ZitoForIdaho.com. That's my website. My phone number's everywhere. Email me, call me, whatever you need. But I agree with her. Keep the pressure on this building, because they respond to the threat of the next election.
They do.
Yes.
And this is coming from the Z girls.
The Z girls.
That's right, the Z girl. Oh, I love this. I can see it now. If only you were in the same
show.
Yes,
Yes.
the Z girls.
Fantastic. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We'll check in with you again.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Okay, great. The Z girls. Oh, you gotta love it. Okay, well, let's bring in the T guy. Senator Ben Taves is with us. Thank you, Senator, for joining us. I just want to throw it right to you because I know you've had some things you want to address and you want to take on. We do have a clip of you yesterday in the Senate Ed Committee pushing back on that new library bill that came through. I'm not going to play it or get to it. Maybe we'll cover it tomorrow. But I want to throw it to you. How are you, sir? And what do you got for us? Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Your mic. Is he unmuted or is it? There we go. Oh, we had this problem last time. Can't hear you, Ben. Can't hear you. How about Ben? Ben, why don't you stick around? We will, if you have time, we'll stick around. We'll fix this problem. We'll tape our interview and then we'll play it tomorrow. Does that sound good to you? Okay, well, we're gonna do that. Okay. So, oh wait, did we hear him? Did we get him?
Can you hear me?
Hey, there it is. All right, let's stick it. We're staying live. Let's do it live.
Okay, cool. That's what I was saying. Is give me a second. I'll try switching to a different setting, and it worked. So I'm glad that it did.
Great. All right, Ben, I throw it to you. Take it away, my friend.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. It's cool to have a platform to be able to talk with the people of Idaho and let them know what's going on. I have a piece of legislation that's working its way through the State House. It's developed to protect our children from pornography online. And I was hoping, if it's possible, I sent you an image that if we can throw it up on the screen at some point, it doesn't have to be right away, but I'd love to walk the audience through that image because it kind of it has kind of my talking points, and it's easier if they can see that at the same time as I'm talking them through it. But the bill number is HB 498. The image will say 448. That's old information, but HB 498. And it's a piece of legislation that I believe is going to make a huge difference in Idaho. It's going to, I kind of look at where we're at right now, and a recent survey set of 13 to 17-year-olds say that 73% of them have watched pornography online, and 58% of the teens surveyed had stumbled upon it accidentally. The average age of first exposure was age 12, which means that there's some 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds that actually were exposed to pornography online. And so it's a serious problem. And when I think about like what are 13 to 17-year-olds, where they're at now, they're dealing with seeds that are planted by the porn industry into them that will have impact on their relationships, will have an impact on their families, that certainly often lead to addiction and dysfunction. And so those are seeds that are planted. And I'd love to see, when I envision 5 years from now, say an 8-year-old who's 13, what I'd love to see is a situation where they haven't been exposed to this. And so the way to do that, I think this legislation operates in a way that is putting the responsibility where it really should be, which is on the content providers, the porn providers. They need to create a way to keep kids away from their content. And it's really their responsibility. And this legislation is drafted to do that. It's been passed in a total of 8 states so far, and it's in 21 other states have active bills to do this. So it's a recognized problem. It's often bipartisan, it finds bipartisan support because I think most anybody in our society recognizes that this is a real issue and that our children shouldn't be exposed to this content. The method that it uses is it says that these content providers, they have to create an age verification system. They have to have some way of verifying the age of the people on their sites before they can access the content. And if they do not, and it creates harm for a child, it gives the parents the ability to hold them responsible by suing them for $10,000 or more. So it creates a very real threat to these content providers, to the porn companies. And it says, if you're not going to protect the kids, then you're going to pay. And I think it's already had a huge impact in Louisiana, in Utah, in Texas, other places where it's been passed. There's been they've seen a huge drop in the amount of access to pornography. And I'm believing that 5 years from now, there'll be 13-year-olds that haven't seen anything online because of this type of legislation.
Wow. That would be a happy day.
Yeah.
That would be a happy day. I'm glad we were able to get this graphic up here. I want to point out a couple of the things you just said, that currently 8 states, you said, and that's the dark green. The dark green are the current 8 states that have already passed a similar legislation.
Correct.
The darkest green is Louisiana, and that's only because it just passed.
It passed first.
It passed first. Okay.
Yep.
And then all of the light green are pending legislation that are going through it right now. So that's what we have here in Idaho. Okay. So this is the map. So this is sweeping the nation quite literally. I mean, we'll see if it gets to the far left coast.
Yeah.
But we would hope it would, because as you said, it seems to have been a bipartisan effort. So this is very good. This is very good. And is this a document that you've been sharing along with your legislation throughout the House? Because did this pass the House yet? Or what's the status of this bill right now? How can the people get involved?
So it's passed out of committee unanimously, out of State Affairs in the House, and it should be towards the end of the week. It should be on the House floor. So if you email your legislator, tell them that you want to protect the children of Idaho from adult content online, and just let them know that you support this legislation. I want to point out a couple more things. One thing is that this because we put the responsibility with the content providers, the cost burden is on them, where it should be, but it also is cross-platform. So it protects our children, whether they're accessing on a cell phone or a laptop computer, whether they're using a gaming system. I know that my children's gaming system has a browser on it. So it's going to be cross-platform, and it'll protect children wherever they're accessing the internet from. And that's really key to, I think, to protecting our children.
Absolutely. I mean, we see a similar bill that's going through the Senate now that is requiring the cell phone makers and stores that sell the things to make sure that the browser has a filter on it. But as we've seen argued, that doesn't stop any of the other apps from delivering content. And this is, you're saying this because it's targeting the content provider that no matter where in Idaho these children are accessing this stuff, it's going to really diminish the capacity for the kids to access this stuff if they don't have the proper age verification on that. So that's a really strong point that you bring out here. When it comes to the support that you're hearing throughout the Statehouse on both sides of the rotunda, and even in the governor's office, I mean, would this be something that the governor would sign? Sometimes he doesn't like to sign things that have technical issues with such sensitive topics. But what's the reaction been so far?
It's been really positive so far. I haven't had anybody say no. The big concern is IACI, which is the Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry. They're opposing all private right of action, any legislation that has a private cause of action in it. And so this uses a private cause of action to empower the parents to hold the content providers responsible. So my biggest concern is that I could get pushback because they're going to score the bill negative, I'm guessing. I'd love it if they didn't. So if this got back to them, I'd love for them to support this bill and protect the children of Idaho and recognize that there is a place. And I'll just really quickly, our consumer protection legislation in Idaho has used a private cause of action since 1972. So it's not like this is unprecedented at all. It's actually, there's plenty of evidence that this is a great way to hold these types of, I'll say, bad actors accountable.
Yeah. Okay. This is a bit shocking here that IACI, an organization made up of business owners, right? I mean, that's essentially what it breaks down to. They would be opposed to this bill because parents would be allowed to sue companies for redress, porn companies. I mean, I mean, we're going to watch that because that's absolutely ridiculous. And if they're doing it because it's a principled matter, that's ridiculous. I can't imagine anybody defending this or attacking this bill because you're essentially saying it would take away the teeth. I'm almost speechless here. The teeth of this bill is being able to hold these companies accountable if they are not verifying their content is being seen by adults and not minors.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So the recommended solution is to have the Attorney General's office be the enforcement mechanism. And the key to this legislation actually being upheld in the court system is that it's not the government that's doing the enforcing. So I think it's been tried in 3 states. I know of 2 states where the porn companies sued the state. They said it's a First Amendment issue, and you have to put an injunction and stop this legislation from coming into effect. In both cases, in both Texas and Louisiana and also Utah, the courts threw it out and they said, because it's a private cause of action and the government isn't the actor in the enforcement mechanism, you can't require the courts to put an injunction because the government isn't enforcing it. It isn't infringing on free speech. So the key to it actually being useful is that it is a private right of action.
Right. And it's the same fight that the folks who were writing that library bill were trying to do, where they said there should be a cause of action if the libraries are supplying this content. Ben, can we take a step back? Last question for you. Can we take a step back and say, what is going on when there's so many people fighting against the ability to protect children from pornography? What has happened? I mean, we had you on talking about the traditional family organization that you started and the bills that's going through there. Well, we're following that. But I mean, what is it with these folks defending putting pornography in front of children?
I think it's pure evil, but I think that our society to a large extent has lost its moral compass. And I think it's really sad. And like I said, I mean, I don't know that IACI has actually come up against this yet. I don't know that they've scored it as negative. I'd love for them to show that they want to protect the children of Idaho by supporting it or being neutral on it. But I look at other legislation like the cell phone bill that went through yesterday. It actually passed through the Senate. And a lot of us voted against it because I think that they had listened to IACI and they put the Attorney General as the actor, and it's not going to stand judicial scrutiny. It will never. I don't believe that it will ever help protect any children. And so I just said that. I'm like, I appreciate the intent, but because of the way it's drafted, I don't actually believe it will ever impact the children of Idaho.
Right. Oh boy. All right. Well, Senator Taves, thanks for taking the time to come on here. We've got, as my guys like to say, we got about 14 minutes of extra bonus footage today. So that's fantastic.
Right.
Where can people follow you? How can they support you? And we're going to make sure we'll follow up tomorrow and make sure that folks know how important this bill was. But where can people follow you and keep track of your efforts?
Yeah. Ben4idaho.com, the number 4. So Ben, the number 4idaho.com. And I'm I'm starting to send out consistent newsletters 2 times a week through Substack. So same thing, if you search for Ben for Idaho on Substack, you can find me there and subscribe to my newsletter.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you again, Ben, for joining us. Senator Taves down in Boise. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. All right, folks. Well, that was great. We had to delay and we stalled long enough, but hopefully we had some good content for you today. We are 44. It's 11:44 in the north and 12:44 in the south. And we will be back tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 10:30 Pacific. If you want to support the program, idahosignal.com is where you can go. I'll let you figure that out. And one last thing. Why not? Since we're in overtime, our Rumble channel is blowing up. This is fantastic. We haven't really done any advertising other than just talk on the show, but every day. Yesterday we had a huge bump in followers that jumped up. We started at 0. We're hitting the 230 mark, and that's our Rumble channel. If you scroll down here, you can see we got all the clips. The interview with Aisha Williams should be up there too. I don't know why it's not up there, but anyway. There's you can see all the different episodes. That's on our Rumble channel. Everything's archived there. Go through there, watch the clips, follow Idaho Signal on Rumble, and share the content. So thanks guys for reminding me about that and throwing that up there. All right, folks. Once again, we will see you back tomorrow. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great Tuesday. Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. Have a great Tuesday.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.